Hi, this is Jim Rapond with Coldwell Banker Danforth, and welcome. This is Seattle Real Estate Chat. And today I'm joined again with the co-host, Rhonda Porter. Rhonda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I'm Rhonda Porter. I'm a licensed loan officer with Mortgage Master Service Corporation and the author of the Mortgage Porter blog.
And today we're going to be doing just a quick chat about Seattle beaches. And, we have some kinds of beaches here. We call them beaches. If you're from an area like maybe California or Hawaii, you might take note with that and say, well, they're not really white sand, because often our beaches, they'll have sand and maybe some pebbles and rocks in them, or they'll be kind of rocky. But it's what we've got and what we're used to calling beaches. So people who like to hang out and lounge near the water's edge are probably familiar with the beaches that we do have here. And if you're new, we'll give you kind of a little primer on the ones that are maybe the best. So, Rhonda, you want to talk a little bit about it? Because I know you're close to the Alki area there. What are your favorite beaches?
Oh my gosh, well, probably Alki is probably the nicest beach in West Seattle, as far as those that are seeking the nice white sand and kind of a more closer to like what you would consider a California experience. And lots of shops and restaurants and walkways along there, and you can rent bikes and different things like that too to tour about there. But we also have beaches all along the peninsula of West Seattle and along Alki too. A lot of street end beaches or street end parks, pocket parks, so they're very small areas. And then there's also, I think Weather Watch wound up being a pocket park. And then there's also the Constellation Park, which we sometimes in the neighborhood call Constipation Parks. It's right next to the sewage treatment plant. That's probably TMI. And and the parks go all the way along to Lincoln Park, which is Lincoln Park's probably my most favorite park in the Seattle area in West Seattle. It's I believe it's an Alstom Park.
Uh-huh.
But it is and it has a saltwater swimming pool, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful area. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. Probably, I mean, everybody who's been there probably thinks and agrees that Alki Beach is the premier beach for Seattle. And, you got great views there. You can see part of Seattle sometimes, and you can see the Olympics. Ferries go by there, so you can see that. And it's got that true beach experience. There's, in the summer, there's volleyball there, and there's a water taxi that goes across to downtown. Parking, though, is horrendous. I got to tell you, if you're coming from anywhere and you're not familiar with it, you're much better off to take public transit. There's good bus systems that get there. Or take the water taxi or bicycle. If you're in West Seattle already, my gosh, a bicycle, it's a great trail that runs the length there that you can bicycle up and down and find the spot for you and lay out a beach towel or whatever you want to do. Just walk along the promenade or whatever you want to do there. So, yeah, Alki is the best. Now, if you're in North Seattle, you might beg to differ with that. You might be calling Golden Gardens your favorite, and there's good reason for that. Golden Gardens is got more parking, still an issue when it's summertime. It's Seattle, sun comes out, people rush to the park, so it'll be quite busy. But there's cabanas that you can rent for barbecues if you have a group event. There's a large facility there. I forget the name of it. An older brick building that the city rents out for weddings and events, and that's nice to have on the beach. And it's a very wide beach. While Alki is long and narrow, maybe 3-4 miles long. I don't know exactly. Golden Gardens is pretty deep. I mean, you'll have a couple hundred yards there before you get to the water. Not very wide, not very long. It's probably a half a mile long at most, but lots of room for people to stretch out and have a good time. And both of them are both kind of at the same level of sandiness, probably the most sandy of the beaches in Seattle. So, but both of them are really, really kind of only really busy when it's sunny and warm. You see people walking around on Alki in the winter, but not very much. Isn't that your experience too, Rhonda?
Well, there's a lot of I'd say people that are out doing like their jogs or taking in the exercise, and then sometimes too when it gets really stormy out, people like to come out and just watch the waves. So it tends to be a pretty active place year round, but much more in the summertime. And with summertime too, Alki will stay busy into the wee hours, especially if all the bars that are down there also. So.
Okay. So, and it's not normal to see people in the wintertime swimming, but it does happen, right?
Yeah, it can. Well, there is a polar bear plunge sometimes at Alki too. So, but I think that's more of an exception.
Yeah, I think I have seen polar plunges. Here's one that's
Ah,
was going on at Matthews Beach. They have this every January 1st, and it's probably the largest polar plunge. But I got to tell you, that water looks really cold, and only the truly committed, I think, are in for that. Have you ever done one of those?
no, 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 no. I have not. You know, I can swim, so that's my reason for not doing the plunge.
Yeah, I don't need a reason. I'm just not getting to go there. It's not my cup of tea to do
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But there are a couple of other beaches that are pretty popular, actually. Actually, you'd be surprised. They're actually more popular than Alki per square foot. Can you believe
Oh,
that?
I don't know
Yeah,
if I believe you. I have to hear which beaches these
you'd have to
are.
see it to believe it, but it is true. Madison Park Beach is probably maximum amount of people per square feet. So it'll be tough to lay down a beach towel on a sunny day there and have walking space. And that's not really true at Alki. You can get around people and stuff. There's even when it's crowded, it's not hard to walk. But Madison Beach can be like that. And it's lifeguarded. I don't. A number of Seattle beaches are lifeguarded, but I don't think is Alki lifeguarded.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's if that's a concern for you, look on the City Gov pages. I'll put a link to it down below. But there is a good Seattle website by the city that lists the beaches that the city owned beaches, and it lists the dates that they have lifeguards there, and of course you have to follow some city rules. So probably the ones that stick out the most are, and people will be surprised about this a little bit. One, you can't drink, no alcohol on any city beach. The other is
Hmm.
no dogs are allowed. Now that's one I've never
Hmm.
really seen enforced, unless maybe they're off leash. That's when you'd probably get ticketed, but you might get a warning if you had a dog down there on even on a leash, which will shock people because we're a pretty dog friendly city. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
technically, city ordinance says no dogs allowed on the beach. Um, and then sort of the more common sense things about littering and I don't think they allow people out there late at night when it's dangerous or something
Right.
like that. But
Right.
you might want to look at the city rules. There's also, by the way, there's some things about where they're lifeguarded and they have buoys and stuff where you're not allowed to have kids out there under I think 10 without an adult and stuff like that. So you might want to look through the rules if you have any questions.
Right. And a lot of these beaches too might be nature preserves or reserves too. So that could be part of the reasons for all the rules with some of these beaches. I know that along the Alki area, there's a couple spots that are where you're not supposed to dig or remove any sea life or anything from it, and those would be beaches too where they probably don't want any animals on as
Right.
well. So.
Right, that's true. And speaking of nature beaches, Seattle might surprise you as well. It's a liberal city, but we really don't have any nude beaches. I get asked that occasionally by clients. No, not a nude beach city.
Because we're all
Portland
so
has more of that.
pale.
What? Say that
Because we're
again?
all so pale.
Maybe that's why we're also pale. Who knows? But yeah, I think there's a family a naturalist nudist place up in Sultan somewhere.
Well, I
But
didn't know that.
yeah, but that's even just the thought of taking my clothes off in Sultan gives me shivers because I mean, oh my gosh, it's freezing up there. Why would you want to go
Yeah,
up
no,
there to
thank
take your
you.
clothes off? So, but at any rate, yeah. So, and the other thing we should mention is neither you or I probably pay much attention to this, but I do see it when I'm showing homes. The east side has some great
Mhm.
beaches. Have you
Mhm.
ever been down to that one off of the Kirkland Main Drive there?
Yeah. Oh, that off of Lake Washington or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Juanita or yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're
that is a
right.
nice beach.
There's a couple there. Like you mentioned, that Juanita's one of them. Waverly Park is right next to it, I believe, and that's got a nice walk around.
Carolyn Point.
Caroline Point also has a spot. So
Hmm.
Kirkland, I think specifically on the east side of Lake Washington, has the best beaches for that area. Um,
Right.
then there are two or
Right.
three also on Mercer Island that are
Well,
fine.
and one of them on Mercer Island is a dog park too, which is
That's correct.
nice
That's correct. They have
because
an
there's not a lot.
off leash joint, I believe, as well there.
Yeah.
So
You know what,
go ahead.
Jim? We're totally missing Green Lake.
Well,
Which
yeah.
is
Would
there
you
not
call it a
beaches or?
well, not really. First of all, most of
Okay.
the time you're not allowed to swim in there. There is a small
Oh.
swimming area, but
Mhm.
there are large times of the year, long times of the year, where it's the people are told not to swim there because of the bacteria, and
Oh.
uh, so it's not safe. And also for your dogs, they'll tell you don't let your animals swim in there. So for walking around and looking at, yes, but for swimming in, I think Green Lake would be mostly an off bounds. There is a little area though, and they have an indoor community pool that's great, one of the best in the city, and one of the most popular as well. So uh,
Okay. Well, I didn't know
yeah,
that. That's good to know.
yeah. You can check online at the Green Lake Park's website about uh, the restrictions at that particular time around swimming, but it happens fairly often. They have this algae growth from too many lilies on the water and causing problems with that, so it gets a little toxic sometimes. The other
Right.
thing I just wanted to talk about real briefly is private beaches and how that can come into play if people are looking, if they're affluent and looking for a luxury property with a private beach. There are a number of those in Seattle, and there are even some communities where you can purchase a home in the community, pay homeowner dues, and have access to a private beach without having to pay waterfront prices. So probably the most popular of those is Blue Ridge, but Laurelhurst is very popular. Sheridan
Hmm.
Park is very popular, and I believe there's a couple of others, one down in the south end too. Uh, Mount Baker has a nice beach with a nice clubhouse there as well. That San Sayers Park, you know what I'm talking about? Just
I think so.
Park.
And I think the
Yes,
Seward Park, yeah. And then there's a Normandy Park might be the one that you're thinking of in South.
yes. That's another
Yeah.
one I'm thinking of in the south. So the way these work is just like any homeowner association. You pay a monthly fee, and with that includes the maintenance of and access to a private beach area. Sometimes they're fenced off, sometimes they're not. Often they include access to a clubhouse, sometimes even a other facilities like a clubhouse or an indoor pool. The Blue Ridge one has an indoor pool, and the reason I say it's the most active is what I've heard from people who live in that area, and they're very staunch loyalists about that neighborhood, is that it has, not only does it have swim teams, but it's got polo teams, and we've seen some people who have actively gone to the Olympics from those neighborhoods for swimming,
Wow.
and so it's got a pretty uh, devout swimming community there. But the Laurelhurst one is another one that's packed in the summer, and it's a private beach. If you're part of the Laurelhurst community there, access to it, but it's lifeguarded, and if you can stand that cold Lake Washington water, it's a nice spot. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah. That brings up a point too. Even some of the beaches that we've talked about in the Seattle area, if they're not part of a park, oftentimes those beaches are privately owned, with the houses, and people own different various amounts of that beach depending on, how what their legal description is. If it's so, it's not always just because it's in some parts of the country, beaches are just for the public or for everyone, but it's not always the case in Seattle. And some people might mind, and some people probably don't care if you walk on the beach, but something to keep in mind.
yeah, I think often if that's the case, it's often posted at
Hmm.
some point. If you come into the middle of it, you might not see something posted, but from one end or the other, usually they're posted if they have an issue about, no
Hmm.
trespassing or whatever. Um,
Right. I'm thinking
and
of a home on Alki that they've got pretty well posted, but there's so much traffic there, I don't blame them for doing
Well,
that.
yeah, yeah, and Alki
Yeah.
it does. It gets really crowded. And the thing that often people have in the Seattle area, there's so much waterfront area, is they often have boats, and they'll have docks either, they go out, or if it's a shallow area, and you see this over in Alki a good bit actually, they'll have buoys, and they'll have
Hmm.
buoy spots where they put their boat out, especially if it's a stick boat or sailboat. We call stick boats often here. Uh, that they, because of the keel, they can't get very close in. So they'll take a little dinghy to get out to their boat, and they often own a lot of the property that goes out there. You'll see it in the title how far
Hmm.
out their property goes, and it's sometimes significant, hundreds of feet. So
Hmm.
anyway, I guess that about covers it for beaches here in the Seattle area. Next week, we've got a great guest coming up, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that just kind of recently in the news, with this Oso landslide, which a tragic event, has caused some questions for people who are not familiar with riparian rights. And that's where when a landslide happens or a river changes its flow and then naturally changes the boundaries of where properties are and they shift. And who determines that? What's the process with that? How do people get those adjusted and everything? So we're gonna go into those kinds of issues next week, which are kind of esoteric in a way, but quite relevant now. We're having lots of landslides in the area, so people are curious about what they can do. And we'll give some tips about how to watch for those types of areas as well.
Hmm. That'll be a good one. Seattle's so hilly. I mean, it's just, it's an important subject to talk about.
Yeah, and especially in some of the outlying areas. In the city, we don't get as much of that, but there are some landslide-prone areas, and we'll talk about that next week. So I just wanted to push out here anybody who's interested in going to our home buyer seminar. It's when is that again, Rhonda?
July 12th.
Just check in. I wanted to make sure you knew. Yeah, put down here below a link to the registration for that. Those fill up pretty quick, but it's not too hard to get in when you do it early. So go ahead and do that now if you'd like to get involved and get a certificate. Can you tell a little bit about what you get when you do that program, Rhonda?
Sure. Our students who attend the class will get a certificate which makes them eligible for down payment assistance and for the programs that are offered through the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, including they do currently have the state bond program, which has really reduced below market mortgage rates too for people that qualify. So, and the certificates are good for 2 years. So even if you're not buying right away, you can hang on to that certificate and use it for when you do buy a home. Jim and I have also prepared a binder, which is kind of nice, so that our students can keep all their information while they're home shopping or take notes during class too. So that's something that they get to have
Yeah,
from our
that's great.
class.
We've done a number of these. Ron and I have, and the students who take these classes always walk away going, "Wow, I learned a whole bunch about the process," and I feel a lot more comfortable now that I've had this education and in the whole process of buying a home. It's not a big mystery to us about what the processes are. So anyway, love to see you there, and we'll be on next week, and would love to see you at our show next week. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, have a great week.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.